In a world driven by the pursuit of control and the desire for certainty, the concept of surrender often appears counterintuitive, if not outright undesirable. The term surrender frequently evokes images of defeat, weakness, or a relinquishment of power. Yet, surrender in the spiritual and philosophical sense transcends this superficial understanding. It is not about giving up or giving in, rather, it is about letting go. True surrender is an active, intentional process that involves aligning oneself with the flow of life, relinquishing the need for control, and trusting the inherent wisdom of the universe. The power of surrender lies in its capacity to liberate us from the limitations of our ego and mind, allowing us to step into the boundless, interconnected nature of existence. When we surrender, we release our attachment to outcomes and expectations, enabling us to experience life as it unfolds, rather than as we believe it should be. This shift in perspective opens the door to profound peace, freedom, and growth, as we learn to embrace uncertainty and flow with the ever-changing currents of life. The nature of control and its illusions. Human beings have an innate desire for control. From an early age, we are conditioned to believe that we must take charge of our lives, set goals, and work tirelessly to achieve them. Society often reinforces this notion, equating success with one's ability to manipulate circumstances and outcomes. We are taught that if we work hard enough, plan well enough, and make the right choices, we can shape our destinies according to our desires. While there is some truth to this, it is also an incomplete and often misleading view of reality. The pursuit of control is rooted in the illusion that we can predict and manage the infinite variables that shape our lives. In truth, much of what happens is beyond our control. We cannot predict the actions of others, the unfolding of natural events, or the timing of life's opportunities and challenges. Despite our best efforts, the unpredictable nature of life remains a constant. This desire for control often leads to anxiety, frustration, and suffering. When life does not unfold according to our expectations, we feel as though we have failed. We resist the present moment, clinging to an imagined future or lamenting a past that no longer exists. The more we attempt to control, the more we experience the limitations of our efforts. This creates a cycle of tension and dissatisfaction that prevents us from fully experiencing the richness of life. The wisdom of surrender. Surrender is not about giving up on life or becoming passive. Rather, it is about recognizing the limits of our control and choosing to release our attachment to specific outcomes. When we surrender, we are not abdicating responsibility for our lives. Instead, we are acknowledging the greater forces at play and trusting in the intelligence of the universe. Surrender involves a deep acceptance of the present moment, as it is, without resistance or judgment. At its core, surrender is an act of trust. It requires us to let go of the need to know, to predict, and to control, and instead, to trust that life is unfolding in perfect harmony, even when it appears otherwise. This trust is not blind faith, but rather a recognition that the universe operates according to principles that are beyond our limited understanding. Just as a river flows naturally toward the sea, so too does life move toward its highest expression, even when the path is unclear. Surrender is not a one-time event, but an ongoing practice. It is a continual process of releasing our grip on life and allowing ourselves to be carried by its current. This does not mean that we abandon our goals or desires, but rather that we hold them lightly, without attachment to how or when they will manifest. In surrendering, we open ourselves to the infinite possibilities that life offers, rather than clinging to a narrow vision of what we believe is best. 3. Surrender and the ego. The greatest obstacle to surrender is the ego. The ego is the part of us that identifies with our thoughts, beliefs, and desires. It is the aspect of our consciousness that seeks to maintain control, to assert its will, and to protect itself from perceived threats. The ego thrives on certainty and predictability, and it resists anything that challenges its sense of control. Surrender threatens the ego because it requires us to release the very things the ego holds dear: control, certainty, and the belief that we are the sole authors of our lives. When we surrender, we acknowledge that there are forces greater than ourselves at work. We recognize that we are not separate from the universe, but part of a vast, interconnected web of existence. The ego resists this recognition because it fears dissolution. It fears that if we surrender, we will lose our sense of self, our identity, and our purpose. Yet, paradoxically, it is through surrender that we discover our true selves. When we let go of the ego's need for control, we tap into a deeper, more expansive sense of self that is not defined by our thoughts or circumstances. We come to realize that we are not the limited, separate beings we once believed ourselves to be, but expressions of the infinite, boundless nature of life itself. IV. The practice of surrender in everyday life. Surrender is not a passive state. It requires active engagement and conscious effort. To surrender is to cultivate an attitude of openness and trust, even in the face of uncertainty and challenge. It is a practice that can be applied to all areas of life, from relationships and career to health and personal growth. 1. Surrendering in relationships. One of the most powerful areas in which to practice surrender is in relationships. Often, we enter relationships with expectations and desires, hoping that the other person will fulfill our needs or conform to our ideals. When they do not, we may feel disappointed or frustrated, attempting to change or control them to meet our expectations. Surrender in relationships means releasing the need to control the other person and allowing them to be who they are. It involves accepting the other person fully, without trying to change or manipulate them. This does not mean that we passively accept harmful behavior, but rather that we let go of our attachment to how we think the relationship should be and allow it to evolve naturally. When we surrender in relationships, we create space for genuine connection and intimacy to arise. We move from a place of fear and control to one of love and acceptance, allowing the relationship to grow in ways we may not have anticipated. In doing so, we experience a deeper level of fulfillment and harmony in our connections with others. 2. Surrendering in career and purpose. In the realm of career and purpose, surrender involves releasing our attachment to specific outcomes and trusting that our path will unfold in the right way and at the right time. Many people struggle with the idea of surrendering in their careers, believing that they must control every aspect of their professional lives to achieve success. However, surrender in this context does not mean giving up on ambition or goals. It means recognizing that our true purpose is not something we create or control, but something we discover by aligning with the flow of life. When we surrender to the process, we allow opportunities to come to us naturally, rather than forcing outcomes that may not be aligned with our highest good. Surrendering in our careers also means being open to change and growth. Life often presents us with unexpected twists and turns, and when we are too rigid in our plans, we may miss out on opportunities that are better suited to our true calling. By surrendering to the unfolding of our purpose, we invite greater clarity, creativity, and fulfillment into our professional lives. 3. Surrendering to health challenges. Health challenges can be one of the most difficult areas in which to practice surrender. When faced with illness or physical limitations, it is natural to want to fight, resist, or control the situation. However, surrendering to the reality of our health challenges does not mean giving up on healing. It means accepting where we are in the present moment and working with, rather than against, our bodies. Surrendering to health challenges involves letting go of the need for immediate solutions and trusting in the body's natural healing processes. It means acknowledging that our bodies are wise and that healing often occurs in ways we cannot predict or control. When we surrender, we allow ourselves to be fully present with our bodies, creating a space for deeper healing and transformation to take place. 4. Surrendering to personal growth and spirituality. Surrender is at the heart of personal growth and spiritual awakening. As we move along our spiritual path, we are often called to release old beliefs, identities, and attachments that no longer serve us. This process of letting go can be challenging, as it requires us to step into the unknown and trust in the unfolding of our inner journey. Surrendering to personal growth means accepting that growth is not always linear or predictable. It means trusting that the lessons and challenges we encounter are a part of our spiritual evolution, even when they are difficult to understand. By surrendering to the process of growth, we open ourselves to new insights, experiences, and dimensions of consciousness that we may not have previously imagined. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more insightful tips and guidance. For those who wish to explore deeper, I've prepared exclusive guides on my website in my bio, https://www.lifecoachspiritual.com.